Hello everyone and welcome back to Call Gaming. So let's talk about the Steam Index, the newest virtual reality headset that's going to be coming to the market, and quite frankly, I'm doubtful that it will succeed. That's my honest thoughts. But before I give more of those, let's first take a look at the specs that the Valve Index is going to offer us. So this is an article coming from PC Gamer. It's made by Tyler Wilde. It's a great summary of all the information that we need to know. So first up, for the computer to know where you are, two controllers, and obviously the headset, then it will cost you $999. Man, that is expensive. It's not the most expensive on the market. That would still be the HTC Vive Pro. That's coming at $1,399, but it's still pricey. It's still essentially a price of a good laptop, of a really high-end phone, of a crappy car, or let's say at least a month's rent. Or, for example, in my case, about a month and a half. It's still a good amount of money for a lot of people. And obviously, you still need a computer. So this will not be a headset for people who want to go and start with virtual reality on the cheap. And on the other hand, if we take a look at what the headset actually offers, we can see that it actually has a lot to offer. We're starting with 1440 by 16 resolution per display. That means per eye, which is the same resolution as the HTC Vive Pro, which is quite impressive actually. They are claiming they have a custom full RGB LCD with 50% more subpixels than OLED, which should increase the display quality. A persistence of just 0.330 milliseconds, which should increase the image sharpness. High FOV custom lenses, and apparently something that they're calling lens adjustment is done quote unquote right, whatever that means. High geometric stability, optical canting, which balances inner and outer fields of view, and software that ensures that developers don't have to worry about that, which is actually a pretty important thing because the field of view does impact a lot when it comes to VR. A 120 hertz refresh rate with an experimental 144 hertz mode, which is actually pretty nice. 120 hertz is quite awesome, but the headset is still backwards compatible with games designed just for 90 hertz screens. Built-in speakers that don't touch your ears. I don't know why that is something they're claiming is a big thing, but sure. Modability through front USB space and stereo cameras, which we don't really know much about. Then upgrades to the base stations, which are getting their 2.0 version, which do have a larger range and wider field of view. But it is still compatible if you already own the 1.0 base stations that come with the HTC Vive. Which means, man, this should be one hell of a good VR headset. There are a few more things that we should talk about. We have here an image that talks about the lenses, so you can see the Index has a very different way of creating subpixels compared to your typical OLED. And that means that a larger portion of the display is actually filled with LEDs that make up the image. Hopefully that should help with picture sharpness. Apparently the lenses help achieve sharpness across large fields of view and across large eye box. That claims it can offer a perceived 20 degrees larger field of view than the Vive, while also appearing crisp, which means detailed at this way. It also says that the lenses sit closer to your eyes in the index, which means that all users get to experience the maximum field of view. Obviously, we would have to test it out to actually see whether that is true or not. They said they are actually heavily focusing on comfort, with something that is a great statement. Careful geometry targeting 95% of adult heads. And then they have a little bit about the speakers, saying that the near field off ear speakers, which use speaker drivers instead of headphone drivers, and Valve claims that should offer a more natural sounding high fidelity audio, and it should be more comfortable because, well, you don't have it on your ears. So honestly, often I find that if I'm wearing like in-ear headphones, it's more comfortable than wearing my headset. But I think that's really subjective, so I will not say claims whether that is actually more or less comfortable. Obviously, then we have the controllers, which we can see here. These look actually really amazing. I think this is the biggest thing about the Steam Index, as the controllers truly could be a real game changer and could provide VR gaming with that much needed push. Because let's face it, so far VR gaming has really been a niche. The new index controllers that are commonly known as Knuckles, they actually use 87 sensors per controller, both optical, motion, capacitive, and force sensors, so they can figure out what exactly you're doing with your hands and even your individual fingers. And that's the part I really think could actually be a game changer. Valve is saying that they should enable direct actions with the controllers, meaning that you can actually like grab stuff, throw, pinch, squeeze, and even do gestures, which really is something that so far has been missing from VR, because at the moment it's essentially been just a different way to view the game, but really good controllers could really change the way we control it. Obviously, it still works with older controllers, and the index controllers will work with older VR games, but obviously they will not be able to take use of those new features unless there is a patch. And then again, we have the pricing. So for the full VR kit, it's $999 or 1,079 euros, which I hate, because why is it more expensive in euros? Euro is stronger than the dollar. $1 is worth less than €1. Why does it cost more in euros? I don't understand this. Why are we Europeans getting screwed over on this? If you want just the headset and controllers, it's $749 and 799 euros. The standalone headset, as I already mentioned, is $499, 539 euros. The controllers, a pair of them, which is probably the most, I think, interesting thing of everything here, is $279 and 299 euros, and the base station, if you want just that, is $149 or 159 euros. Compare that to the price of a full kit of the Oculus Rift, which, while being essentially the originator of current gen VR, is also the weakest of the stuff, is going for $700. The HTC Vive, just the headset, is $500, which is the same price as the Index headset. So there, I think people who will just want a headset, they will probably go for the Index. And the full HTC Vive kit is $1,400. And there, I think it's a very easy choice to just go for the Index. Why would you go for that? But now let's talk about whether I think this will be a success. And sadly, I have to say, I just don't think it will. I think Valve is falling into the same Same pit that all the other VR companies has fallen into. It's too expensive. Sadly, it is. The only VR I have seen casual gamers using was Google Cardboard. And some of them were using it for gaming, but most of them were using it to watch movies. Why isn't anybody buying the Oculus Rift? And why isn't really anybody buying the HTC Vive? Because they're incredibly expensive. And yes, you might be saying they're at the peak of technology. It's the top tier you can get, and you must expect to pay for that. And yeah, you do. But the problem is, most people are not willing to spend $1,000 on a PC accessory. It's just too expensive. Because you don't only need the headset or the full kit. You also need a pretty good computer that will very likely set you back another at least $700 to $1,000. Just the PC itself, if not more. Let's be clear. And I'm not talking with tax. With tax, we're more likely talking something like $1,000 to $1,300 for entry-level VR machine. If you want to really go for the best of the best, be prepared to go for $2,000 at the very least to get a good VR machine. On top of that, you will most likely not only be playing VR games, you will also need a monitor. You will also need a keyboard, a mouse, and all the rest of the stuff that you need when you're a gamer. On the other hand, if you are already a gamer and you're just considering buying a VR headset, the Valve Index is actually looking quite good if you do have the money to spend. But again, it will not be the device that brings VR into the mainstream. I was really hoping that Valve would see this, that they have to go for a machine that is cheap, that costs something along the lines of $400, something of the price of a console, that your average person would be willing to, let's say, get this for Christmas for their child, but they will not be willing to spend $1,000 on a Christmas gift for their children, the same way they will not buy this for their birthday. But if it costs like $400, yeah, they would be actually willing to consider it. So I would actually want to mention one more thing, and that is the possibility of me being completely wrong. There's a chance that VR is actually growing and just nobody has really noticed it, and I'm just one of those idiots who didn't really notice it. And if there is a company who should know whether VR is growing and whether it is the future of gaming, it is most likely Valve. Because they do have the data on how many VR games sell, and I'll be honest with you, I actually see a good amount of VR games being published on the Steam market. And actually a good amount of them look like decent games. So the fact that you might be saying, but what would I play if I get VR? It's not really that big of a deal nowadays. There are plenty of games to play in VR. The problem is that none of them are really your killer app. Though, with the fact that we know that Valve is working on a few games, and we do have some rumors that one of them could be a VR version of Half-Life, that might actually be their attempt at a killer app. But I don't think that Half-Life would be your mainstream sort of game. It might be a killer app among gamers, but not among casual gamers. Among pretty hardcore gamers, whenever we get a Half-Life game, we will just jump at the opportunity to play it. But your average guy who plays on a console, who plays games like Mortal Kombat, who plays games like, Forza Racing, FIFA, Madden, he will not care. He couldn't care less. He might buy the game because all the hype that will be surrounding it, but he will definitely not buy the game if he also has to buy a VR headset alongside of it. Because that's just like, I'm not gonna spend $1,000 on a game. Oh, he might. in a free-to-play game that gets the money out of him in microtransactions over time. But just putting the money all in at one go is just going to be too much for most people. So sadly, it looks like a good headset, something I would definitely love to try out in an arcade, but nothing I will be getting for my home. If it was a $400 headset, I might actually jump at the opportunity. If it was a $200 headset, I would be buying it immediately. So, sadly, I just think it's just going to be another wasted engineering effort. If you disagree, be sure to tell me. If you agree with me, maybe consider liking the video. And if you want to hear more of my opinions on gaming news, click that little subscribe button. Either way, be sure to tune in next time, which will happen whenever there is something I think is newsworthy. See you guys later with more gaming content.